Telstra Ventures, a strategic growth investor backed by Telstra and HarbourVest. We're a team of 19 proven professionals strategically located across the US, Australia and China. We're focused on the people in the businesses we're looking to invest in, those whose ethos, passion and vision towards business aligns with our own. That's how we've become Australia's largest venture capital fund. Over 807 million in 69 investments, 24 liquidity events, 9 unicorns, 3 decacorns, and more than 370 million generated in revenue for our portfolio companies. We partner with Lighthouse innovators who bring disruptive technological solutions and radical thinking to our customers. And more than 1,250 enterprise customers use one or multiple solutions from our portfolio. Digital marketing and e-commerce. Solutions delivering the engagement experience the customers desire. Security, compliance and risk management. Solutions securing enterprises' digital and reputational assets. Data-driven decisions. Solutions supporting real-time decision-making and powerful customer insights. Speed to market. Solutions creating new innovative services to respond to market changes. Workforce mobility and collaboration. Solutions enabling a secure digital workplace. Customer experience. Solutions to best understand, engage and support your customers. Interactive media. Solutions reinventing the consumer experience across fitness, travel, sports and gaming. In challenging times, we'll help you navigate through the darkness to a brighter future. That's why we've brought some of the world's most innovative businesses to Vantage Remix. Discover how we can help lead your business in the right direction. Telstra Ventures, partnering with the extraordinary.
Hello and welcome. My name is Ray Johnston. I'm the Science and Technology Editor at NITV and SBS, and I'll be your moderator for today's session, Telstra Ventures Lighthouse Moments. Now, we've named our session Lighthouse Moments because we want to present you with a clear way forward, guiding you toward a brighter future. I'm joined today by Yash Patel, Saad Siddiqui and Marcus Bartram from Telstra Ventures. Gentlemen, welcome.
Welcome. Hi, Ray.
It's great to see you, Ray.
Great to see you too. So, what is today's session all about? Well, the world is changing, and with that we need to look at problems and opportunities in a different way. COVID hasn't stopped innovation. In fact, it's accelerating as companies are finding better ways to do things. 2020 has disrupted the status quo in so many ways, and Telstra Ventures is all about finding those future trends and great tech companies that will disrupt how you think about how problems are solved. Let's begin with a little about our panellists. Hello, gentlemen. I'm going to speak with you about your passions. Yash, we'll start with you. I'm into one of the things that you love, gaming and sports.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having us, Ray. I've been at Telstra Ventures for about 7 years now, and prior to that was at an ad tech startup. And 7 years is a long time in sort of our industry. And you kind of have to find ways to kind of keep it interesting. And one of the things I've leaned into is sort of my passion for technology, obviously, as a venture capital investor, but also my passion for sports. And by combining these two interests, I've been able to kind of invest in some really interesting companies along with the rest of our fund, across networking, security, fan engagement, things like artificial intelligence and analytics, digital health, et cetera, that you'll hear about later in this panel. But it's been really exciting to partner with sports teams, leagues, and even athletes that are very excited about venture capital investing and the future.
Thanks, Yash. Saad, from one data nerd to another, tell me about your passion.
Yeah, so over the last decade, I've sort of spent a lot of time between the intersection of data and networking. And this is highlighted by the fact that over the last couple of years, we've generated more data than we have in the entire history of humankind. And this is because of the advent of things like social media, connected devices, the need for artificial intelligence, and the data that requires. And that is spawned primarily due to the reduced cost of computation of this data and the storage of this data. I'm personally really excited by the fact that we're investing both in how people are interacting and then also how we get insights from these interactions.
Now, Marcus, it's hard to think of a more noble passion than keeping the world protected and secure. Tell me more.
Thanks, Ray. Well, I was one of the founding team at Telstra Ventures, and what I've really found a passion for over the years is on a couple of dimensions. First and foremost, I love helping founders build sort of big, successful companies. And I found my real interest there is, when they're solving big problems that are doing good in the world, which has led me to like a bunch of really interesting investments in cybersecurity, which is all about protecting people and data and enterprises from criminals. And more recently in sort of the insurance space, where it's about helping businesses recover from problems they've had and disasters that have struck.
Wonderful. Yash, I think that you've got some thoughts to add on that one as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think when we're investing, we're investing in companies that really add a lot of value. And Mark has kind of talked about security and insurance. We're also looking at things that really improve a consumer's life, right? So digital health and wellness is a big part of our investment thesis. We actually invested in a company called FitOn, which is effectively presenting a more interesting gamified view of workouts for the user, which is particularly relevant right now as you think about COVID and everyone staying at home and the lack of physical fitness that people kind of have right now. So we're really excited about investing in companies that are becoming more mainstream with sort of COVID really accelerating a lot of these trends.
Now, I am curious, how do you find the right company to invest in? How do you find one that matches with your passion and your morals and how you want the world to be? We'll start with Yash.
Absolutely. I think it's a great question. And I think we all look for a lot of the usual things that every venture capital investor will talk about. Lighthouse entrepreneurs, great product market fit. We're looking for great just teams and great DNA, which a lot of it is honestly done through kind of just evaluating from a personal level these entrepreneurs and their grit and their ability to persevere through what could be a very long roller coaster. So those are all critical. But I think one of the things we're really excited about is investing in people that have sort of diversity of thought. And what I mean by that is, it's not just thinking outside of the box, but some of our most successful investments, whether it's BigCommerce, which is based, originally out of Australia and just went public in the New York Stock Exchange. It's about, different types of people all across the spectrum. And we want to make sure that the teams we partner with really incorporate that diversity, in everything that they do as it relates to running their organizations. We're particularly proud of, I mentioned FitOn earlier. FitOn is led by a female CEO based out of here in Los Angeles, extremely talented, intelligent woman. But we're particularly proud of investing in companies like hers, where she really understands the demographic she's going after. And there would be nobody better placed than her to kind of lead this to be, the next Nike killer or the next Lululemon killer as it relates to kind of athleisure fitness and where that world is going.
Yeah.
So it's really exciting.
It makes a lot of sense, when you've got diverse teams working on products that end up being diverse and appeal to more people. It's just good business sense, isn't it? Saad, how about you? How do you look for companies to invest in? How do you know that you've found the right one?
I think piggybacking off of what Yash said earlier, I think we've spent a lot of time trying to understand what is the unique insight that an entrepreneur has and the experiences that they bring to the table. So we really sort of spent a lot of time trying to figure out the founder market fit. The second thing we sort of spent a lot of time assessing is how big these markets are and how quickly can they sort of change the lives of people across the globe. We shy away from investments that sort of have a limited impact or just a bit of a evolutionary technology. We're looking for revolutionary founders that change the way the world works. So spend a lot of time on the market side. And then the third thing we spend a lot of time on is the unique technology or approach that these founders have built and the teams that they've sort of brought together. And so those are some of the ways that we sort of assess a lot of these technologies and the companies that sort of come across our team.
Wonderful. And how about you, Marcus? How do you know when you've found the one?
That's a great question. Sometimes it's a little more intuitive than scientific, but one of the things I really look for, especially on the security side, is someone who understands the problem really deeply. Security is like 4,500 companies in the security market today that we could possibly invest in. So there's a sort of plethora of opportunity, but you've got to kind of figure out from the team that's there and the founders of the company, do they really truly understand the customer pain point, and can they engage with that customer and kind of tell them a story that resonates with the buyer, because the buyers are fatigued by the number of sort of opportunities that they can go and search for to try and sort of solve a problem. And then, to Saad's point, is the problem big enough that it scales across the whole market? So that's part of it. On the insurance side, I'm really looking for this unique combination of insurance expertise and technical expertise and how they blend together, because each on their own is, I think, kind of half the story. So it's a very sort of personal sort of view I have on how these founders think about these problems and what they're doing.
Now, I'd love to.
And I would just add one thing, Ray.
Go ahead.
About that is we've talked about how we pick entrepreneurs and companies, but we ultimately serve them. And, we make it very clear, and Saad and Marcus and I, we battle really hard to win the hearts and minds of these entrepreneurs, not only in Silicon Valley, but all across the world. And that is probably 80-90% of our work is making sure we can win the trust of these entrepreneurs. So I just wanted to mention that that's a critical part of our job. It's usually not the other way around.
That's a really important point. Thank you. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts on something we're all thinking about at the moment, and that's a post-COVID world. What does the world after COVID look like? What tech will accelerate? We've already seen what has accelerated. What's coming in the future, though? We'll start with Saad.
Yeah, so I think one thing that's sort of become very evident is because of the stresses that enterprises have on budgets, people need to start working with a lot less. So this means that they need to collaborate a lot more. So we're seeing acceleration across the board in open source technologies and people across companies like Lyft, Airbnb, LinkedIn, Facebook contributing to really popular open source projects to solve problems that are ubiquitous across these different organizations. But the challenge comes in when IT organizations need to have control over and insight over these technologies and can kind of give rise to these quote unquote shadow IT infrastructure problems. And the third thing is businesses are looking to get insights faster, especially with more and more data. They need to be able to get to results faster and move faster, especially as the world keeps changing in a pretty quick way. So we've sort of been spending a lot of time trying to understand what's the right mix between the collaboration that's kind of being accelerated across the organizations using open source tools, the control that people are looking for, and then getting insights faster. An example of this is in one of our portfolio companies, a company called Incorda that leverages some of the most popular open source projects like Spark and Parquet, is one of the only companies in the space that is GDPR compliant and is being used by companies like Apple, Facebook, Netflix, Starbucks, and many others to get insights faster in the hands of business users.
And then they can use those insights and gamify everything, right, Yash?
Absolutely, absolutely. If there's one thing you guys will take away from this panel, it's that gaming's eating the world. And I think with COVID, you've sort of seen the acceleration of, interactive media experiences by yourselves, whether it's watching Netflix or your kids, playing more and more games. And we have a core thesis here at Telstra Ventures that, gaming will become more mainstream to the point where, it may become the next social media network. And in the future, we kind of talk about this somewhat jokingly at Telstra Ventures, but also seriously about investing in the metaverse, right? How does the world look like in 5, 10, 20 years? AR and VR headsets are cheaper, resolution is better. And we feel that gaming will be one of the early adopters and early drivers of this kind of future. And so we've invested in a bunch of, esports and gaming companies along that thesis. But we've also noticed a trend beyond gaming, where gaming is and the mechanics associated with creating a great game are being implemented in other kind of sectors. So whether it's retail or financial services, or if you're an airline, you want to kind of engage your users better through the app or get them to purchase through the app. These sectors are implementing more and more kind of game experiences, that are ultimately driven by a ton of data and artificial intelligence. One of my favorite apps out there, some of you might be familiar with it, is Robinhood, right? And Robinhood is basically democratizing stock trading for everyone. And if you open up your Robinhood app, it almost looks like a game more than anything else. And that may be good or bad in the sense that it might be encouraging people to, trade way too much. But the point is, there will be multiple category winners across other sectors of gaming.
Now, Marcus, by their very nature, security and insurance are both looking ahead to the future. I'd love to hear your insights on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the onset of COVID really changed the landscape for a lot of companies and accelerated digitization projects, has accelerated the adoption of the cloud. And, Sarah talked about the acceleration of the consumption and use of open source. With all these shifts, it dramatically sort of changes the landscape that cybersecurity guys need to work in to protect their companies. So we've seen, I think we're very early in the days of looking at companies that are delivering sort of cloud security products. We invested in a company recently called CloudKnox, which is about managing access to all these cloud platforms. And enterprises are going to live in this really complex world where they have an existing sort of IT infrastructure and they've adopted cloud infrastructure. And, my sense is that's going to persist for the next, 5, 7, 10 years. So there's a lot of complexity to manage and overlay cybersecurity around. In the insurance sector, insurance is all about the flow of data and money. And a lot of that industry has sort of existed with sort of really high friction points right across the value chain. So, from my mind, there's a great opportunity here to, for these companies and for innovative companies that are kind of playing in that market to actually use new technology and use new techniques to try and win market share and launch new products and be incredibly adaptable and responsive to the market demands, which gives them a massive competitive advantage. And we're seeing that with Corvus, which was kind of the shift from cyber to insurance, from my point of view, is they look to offer cyber insurance products to sort of mid-market companies in the US today. They have a fantastic product, a really good team around tech and insurance, and are using these sort of techniques out of cybersecurity and the cybersecurity tools to write better insurance products. So what I see is like just tremendous opportunity for us as investors and for entrepreneurs to build like really big successful companies, and we will do whatever we can to help them do it.
So what are the key takeaways here? What does our audience, what do our viewers today need to be aware of as they plan for the future? Yash?
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe double clicking on what I kind of previously mentioned around kind of gaming and gamification. If you are architecting your organization and your tech stack, you will really, and it may not seem obvious today, but you will see a lot of success with kind of implementing three things that gaming publishers kind of implement. One is around digital user acquisition. It's really about acquiring users at the right time, at the right place, ingesting first party, third party data, et cetera. That has been perfected to a science in the gaming space. The second piece is retention, right? How do you kind of retain these users over the longer haul? So you're not just creating an app and hoping and praying and acquiring these users through expensive marketing, but how do you kind of monetize them is kind of the third piece I was going to mention, in an authentic way. And each one of those pillars, you've got multiple technologies, usually underpinned by a lot of data science that have actually been perfected in the gaming world. And a lot of these technologies and companies have actually spun out of gaming and become massive multi-billion-dollar companies. As an example, Segment, I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with Segment. It's an API for all APIs. Segment was basically a gaming first company. They were just acquired by Twilio for $3.2 billion, very recently. But you're seeing a lot of examples of these companies in the kind of enterprise infrastructure side that really started with fashion-forward gaming use cases.
And Saad, people are innovating to get things done as well, aren't they?
They are. And I think piggybacking off of what Yash said earlier, enterprise infrastructure and enterprise technologies do take their lead from gaming companies in a big way, because there's very few industries that are as performance sensitive as the gaming industry is. And that is driven primarily by latency, is something that kills the amount of time people play games. So gamers need to make sure that that's something that they should think about. The second thing I kind of think about is the fact that the community side of gaming that is today is definitely penetrating the enterprise IT infrastructure. And that is how people really start thinking about these open source projects and the developers that they can kind of harness across various organizations and build communities around them. So I think and we've sort of seen examples of this in companies like HashiCorp and GitHub and many others that are become multi-billion-dollar companies on the back of the loyal fans of their projects.
How about you, Marcus? Any quick key takeaways before we head into our Q&As?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as enterprise environments become way more complex and cybersecurity becomes more complex in terms of how do you protect these environments, like automation is the key. So kind of automation. How do you do more with less people and still deliver the result for the business? It's like really fundamental. It's actually a really active area for us to be investing in because I think, there's not enough people to solve all of the problems in cybersecurity, so you need automation to actually get there.
We do actually have an audience Q&A question here related to that. Where will automation play? Marcus, I think you could probably jump in on this.
Well, automation is going to play in so many places. If I think about, what people are doing manually today, either in the insurance industry as an example, or even from a cybersecurity perspective, and in sort of many other sort of companies we're invested in, automation is a really fundamental part of how you scale. It's also a fundamental part of how customers kind of consume our company's technologies. And it goes to kind of ease of use and ease of deployment. If you can take away friction points, you get much happier customers. If customers can use tech that reduces the burden on their workforce, they get huge efficiencies out of that as well. So it's sort of a question of where doesn't it play would be my response, really.
I've got a question here about gaming. Oh, sorry. Did you want to jump in there?
Yeah. I think related to that, I think we're seeing automation having an impact across the board. Everything from the back-end operations to even customer interactions. So when we sort of think about one of our companies called ASAP, which is automating customer service interactions, that's an example of how we see the world going, is computers solving human problems. And that can only be done by automation.
Well said. So here is one I think Yash will love. Do you see VR or AR headsets changing to be used for meetings and workshops? And what apps are leading the way in this space, like spatial?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I've looked into this space for a while, and I think that will happen in time. But I think you kind of need some of the infrastructure to kind of be in place, and 5G is really kind of helping with a lot of things around kind of network connectivity and bandwidth. But really, you need better headsets and you need better resolution. And you hear about things like Facebook and Oculus and Samsung, have launched a few phone-based devices. But it will be, not a question of if, but when. And, our bet is that Apple, likely in the next 2 to 3 years, will bring this mainstream, right? So they're going to launch a headset, an AR headset at some point, and they tend to be very cagey about these things. But we want to be in a good place when Apple launches this mainstream. So my mom, your dad, are the ones actually interested in using this. And there's going to be a whole bunch of experiences and applications that will come from that. So we're really excited about that. And then, of course, the sports industry will be the first adopters there. So we'll be in a prime place, when that happens.
It's more than just Pokemon Go, people. Absolutely. I've got another question here. What opportunities in audiobooks and the publishing market? Who wants to take that one?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to do that, as well. The audiobooks and the publishing market is really interesting. We've always been big believers in sort of video as sort of the kind of immediate to short term driver of a lot of engagement and kind of equity value for new startups that are kind of operating in interactive media. But when we think about audio, we're really excited about Google Home and Amazon Alexa and what they're building with their smart home devices. And you're going to see audiobooks and audio experiences that won't have an interface or a screen attached to them. And those will be totally different than what we're used to on our mobile phones and whatnot. So we're excited about audio, in the future. And I think AI will be a big part of, those experiences as well.
I've got another one here. Go for it.
I'm a huge podcast and audiobook listener. So I think the way I've sort of been thinking about it is Spotify has started buying a lot of rights to original content. And this is sort of like to prove the fact that the world of podcasts is here to stay and is becoming a bigger and bigger piece of how consumers like to be entertained. And as when the world returns to normal, people's commutes have started to extend in a big way as employment ends up moving to major cities. And the only way you can kind of get entertained over a 30-minute to an hour-long commute is through podcasts. And we're seeing a lot of really interesting content kind of come out. And we're starting to see some really interesting acquisitions take place by everyone from Amazon that bought Audible to Gimlet that was bought by Spotify. And we suspect that there's more M&A that's going to happen in this space.
I've got one final question before we unfortunately will run out of time. It's a quick one. If a company thinks it has a great industry solution, how should they begin getting in touch with Telstra Ventures?
Super simple, Ray. It's marcus@telstra-ventures.com, Saad@telstra-ventures.com, or Yash@telstra-ventures.com. And look, to be a little more serious, we'd love to hear from people who've got great ideas that are solving big problems. We also love working with, Telstra's customers and the customers of our portfolio companies, because they give us first-hand insight into, the problems they face, but we also, bring them the ideas that we're thinking about, and they help us validate and kind of refine how we think about the world.
Wonderful. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me today. And it's been fantastic. So thank you so much. Now visit telstra-ventures.com to get more information and to get in touch if you're interested. Thank you for attending our session today. Please let us know how we went by rating this session in the ratings box to your right. And if you do want to find out more information on the themes or solutions we've discussed today, or speak to an expert from Telstra or their partners, call or use the Ask a Question box to your right. I'm Ray Johnston. Have a great day.